Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, J.T.F. My name is Chaim Ben Pesach, and we have a program once again with the great David Ben Moshe. This is going to be a very important historic program because we're going to be telling you about all the self-hating Jews who are funding and financing all of those anti-Semitic protests that you see on college campuses and everywhere else. It's being funded mainly by self-hating Jews. As it says in the Bible, your destroyer shall come from within. And we're going to give you the facts and the information and who's behind all of this. So this is really going to be important for you to see this one. This is a program that you're really also going to want to spread everywhere. And in addition to that, we have the Biden administration now openly stopping arms shipments to Israel and blackmailing Israel. It's so essential that Israel finally become independent. So essential, and Israel can if she wants to. And of course, David Ben Moshe always has important things that he brings to the program. But before we begin, this program is dedicated to Refuah Shlema, complete recovery, for Sharon Mitman, Shlomo Ben Sarah, Dorit Bat Sarah, Ruven Ben Shoshana, and Ruth Bat Sarah, and to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls for Malka Bat Meir, Allegra Bat Shlomo, Daniel Nankin, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Ruven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Harab Mir Kahana, Harab Binyamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi Bat Liba, Yosef Ben Meir, Robert Mittman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, and Charles Zolat. First of all, last week the Biden administration cut off arms shipments to Israel to tell Israel not to defend herself against the Hamas terrorists in Gaza. This anti-Semitic administration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, of the cackling hyena Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden, is so viciously anti-Israel, and how any Jew could possibly support these monsters because they want Israel to go under. They'd love to see Israel destroyed, and how any Jew could support this vicious anti-Semitic administration is just beyond the pale. Donald Trump is also not good for Israel. He's also very dangerous and not good for Israel and cannot be trusted. But considering how bad Biden is certainly worse. And so we have no choice. We have to support Donald Trump. And who is behind all of the anti-Semitic demonstrations on college campuses and all of the heckling of speakers and all of the disruptions and all of the rioting? Who's behind all of this? You would think it would be the Arab Muslims, an anti-Semitic organization. And the Arab Muslims and anti-Semites and Gentile anti-Semites are certainly involved in this. Gentile anti-Semite billionaires are certainly involved in this. But the primary sources of funding are coming from self-hating Jews who want to destroy their own people. Boy, we have some sick people. We have some really sick Jews. And it's because the Jews never dealt with their enemies the way people should deal with their enemies. They've never really condemned their enemies. When someone condemns that Jewish Nazi George Soros, they say, that's anti-Semitism, you're against George Soros. All of a sudden it's anti-Semitism to be against the ultimate anti-Semite, George Soros. And
he's got Jewish blood, but he was an atheist. His parents were atheists. So you'd have to go back to grandparents to find actual Jews.
Well, he's not just an atheist. He wants to destroy he actively works on every front obsessively to destroy Israel and to perpetrate another Holocaust against the Jewish people. But anyway, all of these self-hating Jews, they're the ones who are behind most of our problems. Most of our troubles are coming from the self-hating Jews. Again, just as the Nevi'im, as the prophets told us in the Tanakh, in the Bible, your destroyers will come from within. This is certainly something that has happened over and over again with the Jewish people. Now, the question is, who is backing these self-hating demonstrations that openly call for Israel's annihilation? These are demonstrations where, in all these demonstrations, they chant from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea is all of Israel. They want all of Israel annihilated. That's a call for genocide. That's a call for Holocaust against the Jewish people. You might wonder, how could a Jew be supporting something like this? But there are Jews who are participating in this. There's a group called Jewish Voice for Peace, which openly calls for Israel's annihilation and which supports all of the terrorist Nazis that want to destroy Israel. And there's an organization called the Tides Foundation. The Tides Foundation is one of the organizations that funds Jewish Voice for Peace and If Not Now. Those are two organizations that, again, openly call for the destruction of Israel, say that Israel has no right to exist. 57 Muslim countries have a right to exist. 57 Muslim dictatorships that preach extermination and genocide and terrorism, they have a right to exist. But one little Jewish country has no right to exist. The Jews have no right to that. I mean, these are the most vicious, evil, self-hating scum. These are maggots, the lowest of the low. And who's funding the Tides Foundation to fund these organizations that openly call for Israel's destruction, that are promoting demonstrations, and you have riots on college campuses and demonstrations and taking over buildings and causing massive vandalism and damage and costing many millions of dollars, costing local police departments many millions of dollars, and intimidating even the self-hating assimilated Jewish students on these college, most of these Jewish students on these college campuses are themselves self-hating Jews. And even they're getting attacked just because they're Jewish, even though they're self-hating. And their attackers are funded by other self-hating Jews. I mean, where do you have a situation that's so sick like this? We're just so sick. Well, who funds the Tides Foundation? George Soros, whom everybody tells is a Holocaust survivor. Holocaust survivor. He was 14 years old. He helped the Nazis, and he speaks about it all the time. He says it was the happiest period of his life. He was helping the Nazis against his fellow Jews during the Holocaust. That's how he survived. He helped the Nazis when they were taking action against his fellow Jews during the Holocaust.
He called 1944 the greatest year of his life.
Yeah, I mean, just the evil. He funds every organization in Israel that works to destroy Israel. He funds every evil cause. He funds all the other evil causes also, like Black Lives Matter. He funds all the evil anti-Semitic and anti-American causes, all of them. And this monster is also behind the funding of the Tides Foundation. And then you have and by the way, again, all the Jewish organizations like the Anti-Defamation League, which is another self-hating Jewish organization, all these organizations, the ADL and the UJA and all these other groups, they always condemn hysterically anybody who you can't even criticize George Soros. That they call anti-Semitism. Calling for the destruction of Israel, which is what Soros does, is not anti-Semitism. But criticizing Soros, even criticizing this monster, that's anti-Semitism. It's anti-Semitism when you criticize George Soros. And they even had a rule at Fox News, don't criticize, you weren't allowed to for years. They didn't allow any criticism of George Soros because they were so afraid they were going to be accused of anti-Semitism. Could you imagine this? It's unbelievable.
That's like disagreeing with Barack Obama's policies, and if you do, you're called a racist.
No, it's not like that. It's much worse than that. Much worse than that. Okay? Much worse than that. I mean, this is like saying that calling Nazis and Hitler, criticizing, attacking them is anti-Semitism. I mean, this is the worst. This is by far the worst. Obama, at least, is loyal to his own people. He is loyal to his own people. This is someone who is a complete traitor to his own people, the lowest of the low, and works to destroy his own people, the sickest, most vile vermin on the face of the earth. He's worse than the Gentile Nazis. Gentile Nazis, they're evil, they're monsters, but they hate another people. This is someone who hates his own brothers and sisters and wants to exterminate and works fanatically to exterminate his own brothers and sisters. This is the worst. And saying you can't criticize them, and that's anti-Semitism if you criticize it. It's the ultimate insanity. Ultimate insanity. Anyway, who also supports the Tides Foundation? Now, there are Gentiles who support it, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Bill Gates, another Jew-hating piece of subhuman filth. All these these Gentile billionaires are also very evil people, very viciously anti-Israel and viciously anti-Semitic. Another Gentile supporter of the Tides Foundation of the destruction of Israel is the Rockefeller Brothers Fund from David Rockefeller Jr. The Rockefellers were always a bunch of Nazis. Always. And the Jews, oh, they loved Nelson Rockefeller, who was the governor of New York. And they worked with the Rockefellers, all these Jewish liberals, Jacob Javits and all these other animals that worked with the Rockefellers, who supported Hitler during the Holocaust and had deals with Hitler during the Holocaust, and then through Chase Manhattan Bank, which they were involved with, made loans to all the enemies of the Jewish people, to Egypt and Saudi and to the Soviet Union and all the other countries that were trying to destroy the Jewish people for so many years, working to destroy the Jewish people, the Rockefellers. Now, here's another Jewish donor, the Pritzker family, the multi-billionaire Pritzker family. The Pritzker family, by the way, are the owners of the Hyatt Hotels chain. Hyatt Hotels should definitely be boycotted. And the Pritzker family include Governor J. Pritzker of Illinois. He's the governor of Illinois. You know how many Jews give money to him? He's a fellow Jew. We want a fellow Jew to be the governor of Illinois. And maybe someday he'll be president. Oh, I hope so. We'll have a Jewish president. God forbid. Chas v'chalila. This monster supports the Tides Foundation, which has riots calling for the destruction of Israel, and he funds them. And he is backed by all these Jewish donors who say, oh, we want him. He's the governor of Illinois. That's good. And maybe he'll be, he's in 2028, he'll be one of the candidates for president. Maybe he'll become president in 2028.
Can you imagine the anti-Semitism a left-wing Jewish president would cause?
I can't even begin to imagine. I can imagine what will happen if the cackling hyena Kamala Harris becomes president, which is very, very possible. Because the late Joe Biden, if he's reelected, I don't think that he'll survive a whole 5 years in office, because he has this year and then 4 more years after Inauguration Day. He'd have to survive a little bit more than 4.5 years. He'd have to survive for more than 4.5 years, and I don't think he will. He'll either be too sick or he'll croak before that. I just don't think I don't think the late Joe Biden can make it. And so if you have Kamala Harris as president with her self-hating Jewish husband, Doug Emhoff, if you have him in the White House, because she has an IQ in the single digits. I mean, she has no ability to function as president or anything else. She can't even answer a simple question. Well, did you ever hear her speak? We have to understand the present, because the present lets us understand the future. And the future tells us about the present. These are the type of sentences she comes up with. I mean, they try to hide her as much as possible from the public, and they try to even give her, they try to make sure that she only says what they tell her to say. They try their best, but when she gets questions, it is so bad. It's just between her and the late Joe Biden, the two of them together maybe have an combined IQ of 10. I mean, it's so bad. It's unbelievable. And she is a heartbeat away from the presidency. Now, we should understand something. All of the people I mentioned now are all very big donors to the Biden campaign and to the Democrat Party. They're among the leading donors to the Biden re-election campaign and to the Democrat Party. And all of them are demanding, by the way, sanctions against the Hilltop Youth. The Hilltop Youth are the first group they go against. That's the first thing they don't want, is the Hilltop Youth. That's the first demand made in any negotiations on the Middle East. Get rid of those Hilltop Youth settlements, because the Hilltop Youth settlements are the settlements that are blocking a so-called Palestinian state, a Palestinian terrorist state. And of course, there is no Palestine. There are no Palestinians. That's a complete lie, complete historic fallacy. There's never been a Palestinian people, but an Arab terrorist state in Israel's biblical heartland, which would be national suicide for Israel, which the Biden administration is already actively pushing for, and which will be pushed for very obsessively when this war is over in Gaza, and will be pushed for very obsessively if, God forbid, Biden is reelected. And he's openly saying so, that that's going to be his goal. His number one goal in the Middle East is the so-called Palestinian state, the so-called Palestinian terrorist state. Israel, by the way, will be 6 to 9 miles wide if that happens. Complete suicide for that would lead, God forbid, to a Holocaust. And this is what Biden is going to be pushing for. And all of these donors, all of the big donors to his campaign, are the people who are funding these anti-Semitic demonstrations. All the riots and anti-Semitic demonstrations where they call for the death of the Jewish people and where they applaud the Hamas Nazi massacre of October 7th. Those are the donors to Biden, and they're the donors to the Hamas supporters. And by the way, groups like AIPAC, which is also an anti-Israel organization that stupid Orthodox Jews support. The stupidest, how stupid can anybody be? An organization openly pushes for and lobbies for and says they support an independent Palestinian terrorist state. Openly says it. One of the first things they say, openly, even on their site, is that they support the two-state solution. There's no two-state solution. That means the destruction of Israel. And AIPAC supports that. And all the Orthodox Jews, we have to be part of AIPAC after all. They're pushing for foreign aid for Israel. The foreign aid for Israel, so-called foreign aid for Israel, is what's burying Israel. It is essential that Jews wake up. It is essential. The only organization, by the way, outside of Israel that tells you all of this is J.T.F. Who else tells you this? Name another organization that tells you this. All the other organizations outside of Israel are worthless and actually do harm. If all these other Jewish organizations went out of business and all these Jewish donors dropped dead, all these billionaire Jewish donors dropped dead, that would be the best thing for Israel. Be the best thing for Israel and for the Jewish people. I mean, who else tells you all of this other than J.T.F.? We got to strengthen the Hilltop Youth to prevent a Palestinian terrorist state from coming into being, because that's the ultimate goal here. That's the strategy to destroy Israel. We've got to support the Hilltop Youth so that that plan is frustrated. And again, everybody involved will tell you the Hilltop Youth, they are the obstacle, and they are. Because they're the Jews on the ground who are preventing Arab territorial continuity in Judea and Samaria. If they weren't there, the Arabs would take over all of Judea and Samaria, or 97%. There, 3% of Judea and Samaria has Jewish settlements, the more established Jewish settlements where they have about 600,000 Jews living there. But it's only in 3% of Judea and Samaria. The other 97% of Jews are not allowed to live there. They're not allowed. That's the policy of the Netanyahu government. You retarded Jews who support Netanyahu, support that other traitor, another traitor. The Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, Smotrich government. So right-wing. No, the most right-wing government. Right-wing. What a farce. What a disgrace. And people, all these myths and all this nonsense is thrown out, and people just accept it, even though the facts are so clearly otherwise, are so clearly contrary to everything we're being told.
I always tell everybody the Likud party over in Israel is like the GOP party here, a party of phonies.
Again, it's even worse. Because the Republican Party here is not saying, let's hand over the whole United States to ISIS. That's what the Likud party was willing to do. Netanyahu was willing to create an independent Palestinian terrorist state. He said so in his... He has said so. He's made special speeches saying that he supports the two-state solution. He's willing to do this. He's openly said so. You don't have Republicans here who are saying we should hand over the United States to ISIS.
I don't even think we have Democrats saying that here.
Yeah, well, the Democrats are ISIS. But anyway, the bottom line is that that uh, the only people who are doing the right thing in Israel right now, who are really doing something that will really save Israel and that bring hope to Israel, the Hilltop Youth, because that 97% where Jews are not allowed to live in Judea and Samaria, they're in that 97%. They're right in the middle with all the strategic hilltops they've taken over. They've seized dozens of strategic hilltops in the middle of that 97% where the Jews are not allowed to live. And when they destroy the hilltop, when the Israeli army or police come in, because Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and the right-wing government come in to destroy their hilltops, they don't destroy Arab illegal building. The Arabs build 100 times as much as the Jews in Judea and Samaria, 100 times as much, and all of it is illegal building. And they're allowed to do that. That nobody touches. But if a Jew wants to build something in Judea and Samaria, oh, that's illegal. It's an illegal settlement. And so the Hilltop Youth, they're the only hope we have. They're the only hope we have for stopping this. They are the true Maccabees of our generation. Here's how you really help Israel. The only way you want, if you really want to help Israel and want to help them in a meaningful way, this is the only way you can do it, by helping the Hilltop Youth. All the other organizations are full of crap. Here's how you help the Hilltop Youth. You go to our Hebrew main page, hayamin.org, and there's, even though the page is in Hebrew, but there's a donate button, big donate button in English on top. And you go to the donate button in English on top and click on the donate button, and you can very easily and conveniently donate online. Very easy and convenient. And again, it's hayamin.org and the donate button on top when you get to hayamin.org, which is our Hebrew main page. That's if you want to do it online. If you want to do it through the regular mail, checks and money orders made out to J.T.F., and you send it to J.T.F., P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York 11365. I can't even begin to tell you how important this is, and how the very survival of the Jewish people hangs in the balance here. And that means the survival of the world, because the world can't exist without the Jewish people. Because the Jewish people are the light unto the nations, and the holy nation of priests that God created to bring the truth to the world. If the Jewish people weren't here, there'd be no purpose to the world's existence, and the world wouldn't exist. Literally, the world wouldn't exist. God would have no reason to continue the existence of the world. And so this is the ultimate battle, and this is where you can really make a difference that can change the history of the world, and that can bring light and hope to the whole world. You should be part of that. You have such an easy chance here to make such a big difference here. We're not asking you to do what the Hilltop Youth are doing. They're putting their lives on the line with their families in the middle of these hilltop communities. We're just asking you to provide them with some of the material support they need in order to carry on their battle. That's all we're asking for, even though Jews should be on those hilltops. Every Jew who can be should go to the hilltop, should live in Israel and go to the hilltops and be part of that struggle. But we're saying at least let's fund them and help them the way these self-hating Jews are giving billions of dollars to destroy their own people. Shouldn't we be giving whatever we can to save the Jewish people? And this is true for Jews and for righteous Gentiles. And by the way, we have a message here. This is very important. Just one last thing before we turn to David. I know there are a lot of bad things that I speak about on this program, because we have to tell the truth. During the Holocaust, even during the Holocaust, when Peter Berkson and Ben Hecht were trying to wake up American Jews as to what was happening to millions of Jews being massacred in Europe, the Jews said, "Oh, you have such a negative message. Be positive." This is during the Holocaust. They wanted them to be positive. Don't give us bad news. Give us nice things. Tell us, be nice. Tell us nice things. Be nice, nice, nice. This is the mentality of weak and disgusting and immoral people who only want nice things all the time. No, we tell you reality. But despite the fact that we bring you the bad news too, this is actually a very optimistic message that you get from us. Very optimistic. Why? Because in the end, God is in control of everything. That's our real message. God is in control of everything in the end. He tests us and he gives us a lot of leeway to do things that can lead to terrible consequences, but can also lead to wonderful consequences. That's what he's decided to do. He's decided to give us bechira chofshit, free will. But in the end, he has promised through his prophets that we are going to be redeemed and that we are going to be victorious, and that the Jewish people will be a light unto the nations and a holy nation, nation of priests. There's no religious faith more optimistic than the Jewish faith. We believe we're going to defeat death in the end. Imagine a world where there's no death. Imagine a world where there's no disease and no starvation and no conflict and no wars, and God is the ruler of the world. Can you imagine a world like that? What paradise that would be, and a world of paradise for eternity. That is what will eventually happen. That's al ha'olam haba, the world to come, and it's going to be in this world. It's not going to be up in heaven. It's going to be in this world. There'll be techiyat metim, resurrection of the dead, and in this world, we're going to live for eternity. And if you do the right thing, if you do what's right. And every word that it says in the Tanakh, in the Bible, every word that Judaism teaches us is true. Every word is true. There's no doubt that just as all the prophecies have been coming true, the Jews are returned to the land of Israel. After 2,000 years of people expelled 2,000 years ago and thrown to the four winds, I mean, just forced to live in different countries, in 150 different countries all around the world, Jews everywhere, scattered all over, and a hated minority, persecuted with inquisitions and pogroms and holocausts and crusades, massacred, hated, forcibly converted, tortured, raped for 2,000 years. And then this people, homeless, hated, stateless, powerless, comes back to their homeland after 2,000 years, and you don't realize that what it says in the Bible is true. And what would you have thought there's a chance of that 2,000 years ago, when the Jews were scattered and began to face their long night of persecution? The Romans murdered 1 million Jews, and the minority of Jews that survived were scattered and became slaves. Persecuted, hated slaves in all these different countries where they were being forcibly converted and tortured. Would you have thought 2,000 years ago they're going to be able to come back 20 centuries later to their homeland, outnumbered 100 to 1 in 1948, and win a victory and redeem their homeland again? Everything it says in the Bible is true. Everything it says is true. And so in the end, we're going to win. We're going to win in the end. But how much suffering and how much death and how much torture and how much pain are we going to have to go through until we reach that end? That's up to us. We don't have to have any pain or suffering. If we do the right thing, we can bring the redemption immediately. But if we don't do the right thing, it can lead to terrible, tragic, horrifying consequences before we get to the final stage, before we get to the end stage where we win. We win a victory. So this is our chance. This is your chance to be on the side of the redemption, to be on the side of the righteous forces in the world, the forces of light that are fighting to save Israel and save the Jewish people. This is your chance to be on that right side now, by supporting the Hilltop Youth through J.T.F. This is your chance. And again, it's a very optimistic message, because in the end, if we do the right thing, and by the way, whether we do the right thing or not, in the end, we're going to win. We're going to win anyway because of the prior generations. But we can win without all the suffering and without all the delay. We can win if we do what's right now. That's the only question. But this is a very optimistic message in terms of the end result. Let's just try to prevent all the suffering and pain in the interim. That's what J.T.F. is here for. And that is especially what the Hilltop Youth are here for. David?
Yesterday, my wife and I, Ashdina, we took a drive down to Scottsdale. If you're not familiar with Arizona, Scottsdale is a very rich area. And along the drive, we passed places that you just don't, it's names like right out of the Lone Ranger. If you remember the old TV series, The Lone Ranger with Clayton Moore and Jay Silverheels, we passed Black Canyon City. We passed Bloody Basin, Horse Thief Basin, and Dead Man's Wash. You're not going to see anything like that up in the Northeast. But I noticed the price of gas here is $3.59. In some other places, it's $3.49 in Arizona. You go down to Scottsdale, and it's $4.39. And those people can afford it. But there's a place, there's a gas station in Arizona, and 600 feet away is a gas station in California, because the border is between them. And $3.39 I meant for gas, $3.39 here, $4.35 in Scottsdale. But it's $3.49 in the Arizona station, 600 feet away in California. It is this particular station was $6.50, and $6.50 seems to be the going rate through most of California. There's a station in San Francisco that's charging $7.51 a gallon. Now, San Francisco is not Beverly Hills or Hollywood. The people there, a lot of them are working class. I don't know how they afford this. And they keep voting the same people back into office that caused this problem. Most of this is taxes, because the price of fuel only varies a little. Delivery charges further away, delivery charge to this gas station be a little bit more. But most of this is taxes, and that's your state. So I don't understand any of you staying there. It should be a mass exodus, not tens of thousands or even 100,000. It should be millions fleeing that state, even with the great weather and the orange groves, and all you see, all the things growing there, pears and peaches. It truly was a magnificent state, probably the most magnificent state in the Union. It was, once upon a time, it was the world's 8th largest economy, just that one state. And look at it today. I was watching a video on Oakland, which we'll call a second-tier city. It's not like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. And it's one big garbage dump. I don't know how people stay there. Working people, obviously, they live in the suburbs or in the countryside, and they come in to the city to work. But what is causing companies to stay there? If the companies left, the workers would follow, and they could get out of that hellhole.
By the way,
I also wanted to talk about something I saw in a video.
Just a quick comment on that.
Yeah.
Joe Biden is doing everything he can to destroy the American energy industry and to make the United States hopelessly dependent again on Islamic terrorist nations for oil shipments. Under Trump, the prices were much lower because Trump at least he did less to obstruct. I don't think he did enough either to make the United States really a giant energy producer, because the United States should be the energy producer for the whole world. That is what should happen. And we should put the Muslim terrorist countries out of business and have the United States producing everything and getting all the benefits and all the profits. Then the United States would be super, super prosperous and super safe if that happened. But Trump didn't do as much as he should have done, but still much better than Biden. Biden is at war with oil, natural gas, fracking, and all energy solutions. He's at war. It's just insane what he's doing, shutting down the drilling in Alaska, refusing to build the pipeline. to bring oil in from Canada, and just sabotaging energy production in North Dakota, sabotaging all attempts to open up lands. He's declaring lands federally protected lands and not allowing any drilling, not allowing drilling anywhere. I mean, just trying to destroy the coal industry, even though most coal is now produced in a very clean way. They have technology that has made coal clean in most cases.
It's called scrubbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and the United States, just with coal alone, has enough to easily produce enough energy for America's energy needs for the next 1,000 years just from coal. So God has given the United States all the tools, not only to become completely energy independent, but to make the whole world independent of Muslim terrorist countries that endanger the survival of the world. The whole world can be like this. And not only that, other third world countries like Venezuela, that use the money for evil, hideous purposes, and Nigeria. The United States has the ability to do this. Biden is doing everything he can, the opposite, everything to hurt and undermine the United States and to help America's enemies. Just another point, another reason why, that's another major issue why Biden should go and why we have to support Donald Trump.
Well, gas under Trump, the major brands were $2.09 here and $1.99 for the off brands. Now it's $3.69 for the majors and $3.59 for the off brands. And compared to California, this is cheap. This is nothing compared to California, where it's $6.50 to $7.50, depending on where. I don't know how middle class can survive there. Rich people.
Why are California, and yet Californians, according to the polls, are going to vote overwhelmingly for Biden? Insane.
They're voting for their own, I'm not going to call it demise, but they're voting for their own problems, their own monetary problems. And anyway, how could you put a senile old man in? Age doesn't matter. It depends on how you feel, look, and behave. And if you have a youthful persona, even if you're 80. But Joe Biden is old beyond his years. He's like a man in his late 90s. And how can you put that in? He's an embarrassment on the national stage. He can't put 5 words together. You've often heard that the difference between humans and animals is humans have a soul. Well, I don't know if you'd call this a soul. I'll leave it up to you what you want to call this, but I saw something so amazing. On a YouTube video, this sea turtle was trying to escape a tiger shark. If you know anything about tiger sharks, they're the shark just below the great white shark. They can grow up to about 18 feet. That would be a really huge one. They're usually 12 to 15 feet. They have a jaw that can crush through sea turtle shells. Well, this tiger shark but they're a warm water fish, whereas white sharks can be in warm water, but they're basically a cool water fish, not cold water, but a cool water fish. The tiger shark was chasing this sea turtle, and there was a cabin cruiser there, and they put down the platform so the turtle could climb on board, and the shark was just grabbing it as the turtle was climbing on board, and the people on the boat helped that turtle onto the back deck. And they took care of that turtle. It wasn't injured. Another second, it would have been chopped in half. But they took care of it, and when they thought the shark was gone, they released it back into the water. The turtle swam maybe 50 feet, and it saw a jellyfish. It put the jellyfish in its mouth, swam back to the boat, and presented it to the people that just saved its life. Now, a turtle is a reptile, considered lower than mammals in the intelligence scale. How would a turtle know to do this? Of course, what are you going to do with a jellyfish? But the turtle doesn't know that, because turtles eat jellyfish. So he presented it to the people for saving its life. Then in the Sumatran forest, where the great ape is the orangutan, A male orangutan had a wound on its arm, and it took this plant with healing properties and broke the leaves off so that the fluid could come out and use the healing action of the plant on its wound. Now, how's that for intelligence? That we would never expect animals to know that, not even great apes.
I'm not going to say anything.
One of my table tennis players is a retired doctor from one of the old Soviet states. And she came to this country, and she speaks with a little foreign accent. And anytime I have a problem, I always have her check it out, or as a second opinion. And her brother came here too, and he was a teacher at Embry-Riddle. Now, if you don't know what Embry-Riddle is, it's an aeronautical college. That's where a lot of military pilots get their training. It's where commercial pilots get their training. And so he was teaching there. See, you know, these people are not people that snuck in who go on the dole. They came here with great skills. The teacher must have done something wrong, and immigration kicked him out of the country, kicked his whole family out. Meanwhile, we allow millions of ne'er-do-wells to cross our border and use up all our resources. We're printing money, which devalues everything, which devalues our currency, makes prices go up. We're taking money that you work for and give it to people who can't work, who can't even speak English. Some of them probably don't even know what a toilet bowl is. And this is what this country has deteriorated into. Meanwhile, we're taking a college professor who teaches aeronautics and sending him back to his native country. Everything is upside down in this country. Like Chaim always said, light will be called dark, dark will be called light, good will be called evil, which is certainly true, and evil will be called good.
That's from the prophet Isaiah, by the way.
Yes. I didn't know you knew. No, I knew you knew that. Indian tribes have said, I don't know if you saw this. Indian tribes have said Jews are always welcome on their land. Hamas, they said, is never welcome.
Some of the Indian tribes, there's an evangelical influence among some of the Indians also.
Yes, and there's a tribe in Virginia who don't live on tribal lands. They came out to live like white people, and they're all doing so well. They all live in these mini mansions.
I thought this is such a racist country. How are they able to succeed? Amazing.
Claiming racism has become just a mantra. They claim racism when there's no racism. You give an opinion and you're from a minority group and say the opinion's wrong or you don't like it and you argue with them, you're arguing with them because you're a racist. Right away, you are a racist. It's not the political opinion you're arguing against, it's the person's race. Chancellor at North Carolina University, somebody put up a PLO flag. He went and ripped it down and put up the American flag on that pole. So you see, there still are some Southern gentlemen, and I'm glad he did that. Did you ever wake up one morning and you have a song in your head and you can't get that song out of your head for a few hours? I woke up one morning to the song Old Cape Cod. It was in my head. It was 1956. It was recorded by Patti Page, also known as the Singing Rage, Miss Patti Page. And she has one of the songs that when you think of the 50s, you think of her biggest hit. Oh, I don't know if it was her biggest hit, her most famous hit. When you think of the 50s music, of course, the first thing is Elvis Presley. Whether you liked him or disliked him, that's the first thing that comes to mind. But there are 3 songs on the pop charts that define the 1950s. One of them was Patti Page's The Tennessee Waltz. When we used to perform for older people, they would all try and get up out of their chairs and dance. You could see them singing along. They remembered the words. It was a defining song. Another defining song was Joe Stafford, who was Frank Sinatra's favorite vocalist, recorded You Belong to Me. See the pyramids along the Nile. Number one on our charts for 19 weeks. The first American song to hit number one on the English charts. And then there was 1956, Gogi Grant, The Wayward Wind. Do you remember that song? It never hit number one. It topped out at number 4, but it was on the charts almost an entire year. It crossed over onto the rock and roll charts. It crossed over onto the country charts. The wayward wind is a restless wind. I even remember listening to it and where I was at the time. I remember this one performance on the radio. There was a song, Patti Page's, I don't know if this was her biggest hit or the Tennessee Waltz, but this one was not as famous as the Tennessee Waltz. It's called Old Cape Cod. If you're fond of sand dunes and salt sea air, quaint little villages here and there, you're sure to fall in love with Old Cape Cod. And then it's church bells ringing on a Sunday morn, remind you of the town where you were born. How many times did we say, this is a Christian country? And I remember as a kid hearing the church bells every Sunday morning. You don't hear church bells anymore. Atheists have struck. Atheists have grown in power because we've become so secular. They've taken prayer out of school and replaced it with violence. They've made it illegal to blast church bells, which is a pleasant sound. The only sound that the atheists won't touch, because they're afraid to, and with good reason, is the call of the Adhan from Islam. Not only will they not touch it, the call of the Adhan is 5 decibels above what is legal. And they got special permission to do it. So Christians in their own country cannot ring church bells, but Muslims can give you the call of the Adhan.
But by the way, the fact that there are church bells and that this is a Christian country is a reason why. It's another reason why Jews should be living in Israel. This is not a country for Jews. Jews should not be living here. It's a sin for Jews to live here. I just want to point that out.
And we always said that on the show we used to do back in Queens. And the last thing I have, well, I could do 2 more. I want to end on a positive note. Well, neither one is very positive. Freddie Overstegen. Never heard of her, did you? She was Dutch. She joined the Dutch resistance when she was 14 to fight the Nazis. She rescued some Jewish children. She rescued a few Jews, but her main thing was seducing German soldiers and German Nazis, the SS, and they'd go for a walk down the road where her sister, Truus, Truus, and her would kill the Nazi, bury him in the woods. And she did this throughout the war, seducing Germans and killing them off. Well, she just passed away. And it says here, I took this from the story, that she did rescue Jewish children and Jewish parents too. So maybe, I don't know if she's in Yad Vashem, righteous amongst the Gentiles. Is that what Yad Vashem is? Or am I righteous among the world?
Well, Yad Vashem is the Holocaust memorial in general. That's the Holocaust, but they have the memorial there to the righteous Gentiles. Yes, they have a memorial there also honoring the righteous Gentiles. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to save this other story for next time, but I do have one about another person who saved hundreds, maybe thousands of Jews, Irena Sandler.
By the way, the righteous among the nations is called Hasidei Umot HaOlam in Hebrew. That's the term for the righteous Gentiles in Hebrew.
I'll try and remember that.
Okay.
Irena Sandler. She, as a young woman, was a nurse in Poland, in Warsaw, and she had access in and out of the Jewish ghetto. And she would always bring bags in, and she'd smuggle Jewish children out. She saved hundreds, if not thousands, of Jewish children. Sometimes dogs would be at her heels, barking at what's in the bag she was carrying. And finally, the Gestapo caught her near the end of the war and broke both her legs, but she survived the war and was a nurse. And of course, she grew very old because she was an adult during the war, and she ended up in a nursing home. And the nurse that was caring for her was one of the children she saved. How's that for a coincidence? And when she died, she was put up for the, what's the award they give? It's not the Heisman Trophy, the Nobel Peace Prize. She was put up for the Nobel Peace Prize for all that she did. She lost to Al Gore because of his movie, The Inconvenient Truth about global warming. How's that? How could I don't understand what the two compare? And the night at my do-up club, we put on a show. We always go to the Beacon Theater for our Hall of Fame show. And the Beacon Theater is around Broadway and 72nd, 76th, something like that. We had to go to Symphony Space, which is Broadway and 96th, and you're getting a little too far up. At least they didn't steal any of our video equipment. And that night, when Al Gorleone had the Beacon Theater, and we were up at Symphony Space, it was 2 degrees outside. He was giving a speech on global warming, and the winds were howling at 35 miles an hour. It was like needles hitting you in the face. So I wonder how foolish he felt talking about global warming when it's 2 degrees outside.
That's one. Global warming is one of the excuses that they use to prevent the United States from becoming an energy producer. I mean, it's one of the excuses they use to enable the Islamic world to become the threat that it is to all of humanity. It's completely insane. All these people that are involved with the global warming movement, they're going to find out what global warming is in the next world. Then they're going to have global warming. Anyway, because as we mentioned earlier, in the end, the good guys are going to win. Because, you want to know who's on each side. And you have so many powerful forces on the side of evil. That's true. In this world, you do. But the ultimate power in the world, God Almighty, who has complete power, is all good, is only good. And that should give people a sense of happiness, just knowing that in the end, the real power in the world, the real judge of the world, and the real power of the world is all powerful and all good, and has promised us that good things will happen. We want to, of course, be part of that. If you want to be part of that, you got to live a righteous life if you want to be part of that. But God gives us the opportunity to be part of that. And that should bring us happiness, especially if we actively do things to bring about that good. If we actively participate in trying to bring about that good, then our life has real meaning. That's because you were put into this world. Why? What is all of this about? What's the meaning of all of this? Why do we go through all of this? And what's all of this all about? It's all to test us and bring us to the point where we decide that we're going to become a force for good. If we become a force for good, then our life has true purpose. In your heart, you know we're right. And in your guts, you know they're nuts. For J.T.F. until next week, and for David Ben Moshe, Shalom.